got a long 20-plus year career in internal audit and compliance. I have had educational internal audit as a partner at a large accounting firm in St. Louis. I was a partner for a firm called Reuben Brown, which is about, I think they're about 40th largest firm in the country. So it's not a small firm, but not Big Four or anything like that. But I started my career in internal audit back in the late 90s with J.C. Penney. Did compliance, internal audit, operational and financial audits for them. Moved to a company in St. Louis called Smurfit Stone Container. And then in early 2000, I moved to Anheuser-Busch in their corporate internal audit group. So that's where I kind of like to say is where I really grew some roots in internal audit, because it was I would call it world-class corporate internal audit department. And really got a strong understanding of the internal control requirements for a large corporation, for a consumer product company, the financial requirements, the operational requirements, really that are what I've learned over the years is really applicable to whether you're manufacturing widgets, beer, running school districts. I've done work for junior colleges before, and the processes and controls around organizations are very similar. The revenue streams are different, the risks are different, but I think that it's very applicable to what is required to run a school district. So I spent quite a few years in Anheuser-Busch. I left internal audit there in 2005, and I went to the international division of Anheuser-Busch, and what I did was travel around the world, seeing our international operations and how we made sure we had good internal controls and processes in place. So making sure that, we had the right financial controls, the right operational controls, controls around capital spending, controls around expense monitoring, controls around, expense report monitoring, really anything in the international operation. For several years I traveled in that business. So I did that for a few years. We actually acquired a brewery system in Northeast China called Harbin, and I traveled to Northeast China. I traveled to China over 20 times, helping them implement internal controls. They had really no concept of becoming a part of a publicly traded company. So I walked into an organization that really was in business to employ citizens and pay taxes to the government. There was really no sense of internal controls or what should be in place. So it was kind of a real challenge is to educate the Chinese people that ran the company and why internal controls were important. So did that for a few years, and then Anheuser-Busch, you may know, got acquired by an international company called Ambev, become InBev, and then Anheuser-Busch InBev. Well, a lot of people got let go in that transition. I stayed on. I oversaw the Sarbanes-Oxley requirements for the North America zone in the United States and Canada. So I did that for a few years as a control manager. And then I became the director of CapEx for North America, which was about a $700 million to $1 billion budget that I helped manage, which made sure from the ROI calculations all the way through to the execution, making sure spending was properly handled, proper internal controls were in place for those projects. So did that for a few years, or for a few months actually, and a partner called me from Reuben Brown and said that, hey, we think you might be a good fit for us. Would you be interested in talking? And I said, sure, we can talk. And I ended up joining Reuben Brown in 2012, I think October. Joined them, ended up becoming a partner for Reuben Brown. Got exposure to a wide range of clients, from pharmaceutical manufacturers, pharmacy benefit managers, aerospace manufacturers, junior college. I had a junior college client in Kansas City. Just a whole different role than working for one company. So in that role, I think what it really taught me to be is flexible from a risk assessment perspective and really understanding how to adjust and understand the risk landscape of different types of organizations. So it made me kind of nimble to really be able to step back to an organization and say, hey, what are the key risks that they're facing? What do we need to focus on? What kind of controls should we have in place? And work with and collaborate with the business to make sure, we're doing the right thing. And my goal really was to help those organizations be better at what they were doing. So I also, in that role, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, also had the opportunity to sit across the table from owners of businesses who had people steal a lot of money from them. So owners of businesses where the CFO stole $1 million from them, or just some trusted employee that worked for them for 25 years decided they were going to add an extra expense report here and there and steal $300,000 from them. So, and then other smaller frauds along the way. So that's good learning, but unfortunate for those organizations. But it's kind of the root of being an internal auditor. Sometimes you got to get involved with those kind of things. So I enjoyed that role for sure. And then a friend of mine was the CFO at SeaWorld Parks and Entertainment, which I'm sure everybody here knows SeaWorld Parks. Him and I worked an internal audit together at Anheuser-Busch. If you may not know, but Anheuser-Busch used to own SeaWorld. And him and I worked together. He left internal audit in the early 2000s and went to the theme parks. And him and I had maintained contacts over the years and friends. And he called me one time and said, hey, I could use some help. Would you be interested? And I was still a partner. So a lot of people think, well, why would you leave? You're a partner at one of the biggest firms in the country. Why would you leave? But, he convinced me to come to Florida. I tried it for a few months as the interim. And then I still was a partner at my firm. We made sure I was a good fit for them and that I felt they were a good fit for me. And then so in June of 2019, I joined there as the Vice President of Internal Audit and Compliance. We all know what happened in March of 2020. It kind of messed everything up as far as my, building that, helping build that culture of compliance at SeaWorld, because the park shut down for a few months. And I basically did what I had to do to help keep the business afloat. I was doing journal entries and helping release purchase orders and, just doing whatever I could do to help, because my staff got furloughed. A lot of people got furloughed, unfortunately. So I was doing things that crossed the lines of segregation of duties, but, we really didn't care. We just wanted to make sure we stayed in business. So in the interim there, we had a private equity firm get heavily involved in the company, took over chairman of the board seat, and pretty much rocked the world of the organization at SeaWorld. If you probably not aware, but every executive who's worked at SeaWorld over the last few years has left, except the CEO, and he's the friend of mine who was the CFO when I started. So multiple CFOs, multiple COOs, heads of people organization, chief accounting officers, head of marketing, head of sales. The culture was, for the best word, is toxic. And in my role, where I want to make a difference and help the company run better, being in a toxic work culture it just doesn't jive. So I made a personal decision to leave on my own. So, and so did everybody else. Everybody else has left. In fact, just a month ago, another chief accounting officer left, and the head of engineering who bled SeaWorld left as well. And it's just a toxic culture. So I left on my own, really conflicted with my personal values of how people should be treated. So that was my personal decision to do that. So I took some time off. My daughter was selling a house, buying a house. I was helping her move, this kind of stuff. So I took some time off. And then in 2022, then I started looking for another role, and I landed at Rapid7, which is one of the top cybersecurity companies in the world, from what I gather. But it was a good place to work. Kind of operated as a startup. I felt like I could really make a difference building their internal control culture. But it quickly became apparent that there was something else happening in the business, and you can look up the company, but there's rumors of them going private equity getting involved, which would basically make internal audit unrequired anymore. So the CFO kind of reneged on all the things that he said he was going to ask me to do. And again, personal decision, I left on my own. And so I keep thinking, Lanny picks two good ones. But I had a long career before that, really set my values and, doing things right and treating people correctly. In fact, I've spent a lot of time, I taught forensic accounting at the university level for a few years, at University of Missouri, at Webster University. So my value that I add, that I really think is really developing teams and developing people and helping people understand why internal audit is important. So I did that. I left Rapid7 last year and just kind of took some time again last year to kind of regroup and spend some time with family. And then right after the holidays this year, February, March timeframe, I started kind of really looking in. And I think I applied last year for this role. Came up, I thought it was interesting, and then I saw it come up again. And Jamie let me know that it was taken down, that you were pushing it out a little bit, which made sense because we were in the middle of the school year. I thought, I bet they're waiting until the school calendar is better situated to have a new internal audit leader come in. So I reapplied, and I think from my background, I think the similarities but differences between being in a big corporate environment and being in a large school district that has 45,000 students and, a few hundred schools in their business, their organization, I think really would, transfer very well. I think the mentality and the culture that I think a good leader of internal audit should bring is to be that partner with the company or the organization or the board who I would ultimately report to, and obviously the CFO, so which we'd work very closely with. So I think I bring a lot of value, bring a lot of experience. I've seen a lot. I think I bring a lot of I got a lot of stories and things that I've experienced over the years that are pretty transferable to really any organization. So that's a 35,000-foot view of my career over the last several years. So that answer most questions about my background.
Okay. Any follow-up questions before I move on to the next one?
Not on that one.
Okay. What do you believe to be the key challenges of internal auditing in a public school district?
I think I might have touched on it, but I think demonstrating that value and becoming that trusted advisor to the organization. So the most value I think a leader of internal audit gets is what's not put on paper. What's really is that one-on-one communication with people when they have a question. If they want to say, hey, we're thinking about changing this, what do you think? Get your ideas, participate, collaborate. And it may not end up ultimately on a school board presentation, but it might be me and you working together to say, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Let's work together to do that. But so I think becoming a trusted advisor is where a leader of internal audit adds the most value. Obviously, we have to do those expected internal audits, do our risk assessment to make sure we hit some of those key areas that the board feels needs to be kick the tires a little bit more on. So, I mean, that's obviously a very important part of it. But I think the real value comes in what just the collaboration and becoming that trusted advisor is.
Okay. How would you approach developing an annual audit plan for a school district, and what factors do you prioritize?
For one, I would get a lot of feedback from people across the organization, including everyone on the board. I'd also get to know a lot of the other leaders, maybe not other than the CFO. So people who are in the operations areas of the company really know what's happening in the organization where they feel there might be some risks. And what I would do is kind of gather that information, assess the risks that we feel may be important for me to address in an internal audit plan, get your input to say, what you think is obviously need to be included in that audit plan, and then develop that audit plan and try and be as right on with that plan as you can. The thing with an audit plan is sometimes you have to be flexible because things come up. So something new might come up, or there might be a problem with some process or some transactions that maybe look unusual, but somebody's doing, or somebody feels like there's some expense report problem somewhere that needs to be looked into a little bit more. So you try to stick to the audit plan as much as you can, but you also got to be nimble with it. So I think really key parts are getting feedback, prioritizing the risk, also looking at your financial statements to make sure you really truly understand from a top-down perspective where are our dollars and where is our risk from a financial perspective. So kind of all that would develop the internal audit plan.
Could you please explain your process for conducting risk assessments in a public school setting?
I may have just touched on it, but I think really just getting feedback and probably one-on-one discussions with folks, maybe over the phone, maybe one-on-one meetings, maybe, I don't know if you use Zoom that much. Do it as much as what's as efficient as possible, getting feedback. I think working closely with the CFO, I think, is really important to understand from a financial perspective where we should focus on, maybe where we haven't focused on much in the past. There's some rotational aspects of an internal audit plan that you might want to do something every 2 or 3 years. Some might come up that, you just come up that need to be addressed and you need to do that audit. Or there might be, unfortunately, a fraud or something like that comes up along the way. So I think, really, like I said, getting feedback, prioritizing the risks that we identify, and then seeing what kind of internal audits or process improvement reviews we could do to work on that.
What strategies would you use to ensure effective communication and collaboration with stakeholders across various departments in the school district and the board, including effective communication of audit findings and recommendations?
I'm very big on interpersonal, so getting a phone call from me would not be out of the ordinary. Obviously, we need to be able to document what we find, make sure we have good documentation, and present that in well-written reports to the board so that they're completely transparent of what we've looked at. But I think one-on-one interactions and getting feedback and building the relationships with the necessary people in the organization, I think, are key.
Okay. Describe a complex audit issue you encountered in a previous role, and then how did you investigate and resolve that issue?
So I think one of the problems have run into a lot in organization is IT-related issues. A lot of times organizations aren't really good at making sure you have proper segregation of duties within their processes. And sometimes the IT people really don't understand why that's the case. In both my last 2 roles, we had issues with segregation of duties. It seems to be a recurring issue, and sometimes making people understand the why those type of controls need to be in place is important, but because sometimes they don't really grasp that if you have segregation of duties problems within your IT systems, that just opens you up to manipulation or fraud. So you have to be really teaching people to understand why that happens and why it's important. And also then coming to address how to react to that is what kind of controls do you need to put in place to minimize that risk from happening again. You can never eliminate it, so you minimizing the risk is key. So working with the organization, making sure the key people understand, making sure we have the right controls in place, and going forward, making sure we monitor that we're doing the corrective actions that we need to do to correct those deficiencies. So.
Okay. I think you've already touched on this, but we can restate it. In your opinion, what do you believe to be the primary role of an internal audit manager in helping a school district improve its operational efficiency?
You referring to my role or
Yes.
somebody? Okay. I think just being that liaison with the organization, being the intermediary between the board and the organization, and being that trusted advisor really, I think, is the most important piece of it.
Okay. That concludes my questions that I have. Board members, if you have any follow-up questions or additional questions?
Mr. Mathias?
So tell me a little bit about your family.
I've been married for 34 years in October. I guess school districts can ask them kind of questions. Be totally frank with you. This is my first non-corporate kind of interview I've ever done. I've never done a panel interview before.
And we're just sitting here quietly, I
If I
thought,
was at
observing you.
if I was at a company right now, I would say, you can't ask that question, but I guess you can. But I don't mind. I'm just saying.
We're nice people.
Yeah, we're not. I've been married for 34 years in October. I have one daughter. She is also an internal auditor, believe it or not. I told her that you want to be employed, major in accounting, get a good degree and get a job, and she works for a top 15 firm in internal audit and consulting. So live here in Orlando with me and my wife. My wife has 7 sisters and a brother. We have frequent visitors to our home. I have 5 brothers and sisters, all range of ages, so we come from big families, lots of nieces and nephews, lots of, a couple grandkids myself, so family is very important to me, so I guess maybe that's answered your question.
I can't say. Do you understand that you actually answer to the board?
Yes.
So that's why it's a panel
Yes,
discussion
yes,
for you.
yes. And that's, in the corporate world, that's the way it is as well. I typically would report to the audit committee chairman on the public board. So I've reported to boards for the last several years, so it's not unusual for me to interact with the board.
You mentioned a minute ago about developing team. You understand that you are a team of one.
Yeah, yes.
So how
I
you
do
go about
understand as
developing
well that there's a lot of coordination with external parties that come in and do audits. So I forget the name of the firm. I saw some
Riggs
charter
and
school,
Ingram.
BK.
Or Riggs and Ingram.
Something like that. I looked at tried to research as much as I could. I couldn't find any information really about internal audit reports, but I think there's a lot of interaction with external firms that do some of the attestation work for the school district. So yes, I do understand that I'm a party of one.
A concern of mine, initially when I came on the board, is when we first hired the previous auditor, who just retired.
Yes.
And I felt bringing that outside perspective was really important, because
Sure.
I'm from the business side.
Okay.
But the learning curve, it's tremendously different
Sure.
than the government side. So do you have any concerns about that?
None really, because I think, like I kind of hinted at earlier, when I was a partner at my accounting firm, I had multiple different types of clients. So I think that taught me to become flexible, become nimble in how I approach risk assessments of an organization, become a quick teach. I think internal auditors have to be a quick teach, and probably in my experience, some of the quickest teach people, if you know what I mean, or internal auditors, because we got to really step in, learn a process as quickly as we can, and become experts very quickly. So I have no concerns at all with that. In fact, I've had to do that in my career. Went from consumer goods companies to partner with multiple types of clients, to theme park company, to a cybersecurity company, to potentially a school district. I think it's just understanding processes and stepping back, and I think it's important for me, and I would learn from everyone here and as many people within the organization as well.
How long did it take you to drive here?
45 minutes.
Up there.
Yeah,
That's all
yeah,
my questions.
Well done.
I live near Disney. That's another family-related question. But
Thank you, Mr. Matthias. Ms. Luke?
You answered my first question that I wrote down, and the second question, I feel like I kind of looked back through my notes, and you did as well. I was just thinking about, with all of the very broad range of experiences you've had, you've got to come with a unique perspective, and I didn't know if you had identified any areas. You mentioned that you looked for some internal audit, and you didn't find anything. I just didn't know if there's anything that you had seen that might have sparked your interest as a need for Lake County schools.
I think what piqued my interest about this is being in the internal audit roles that I've been in, more for the stockholders and the executives. Here, I think transferring that to the importance of educating children in our community, and in my small way as an internal auditor, impacting that, I think is I know for a fact that I would not make what I would make in the corporate world here. And that reward is different when you step into an educational environment. So I think the reward for me would be to make an impact, however I might be able to do that, to offer good quality education and being a good steward, helping the CFO be a good steward of the funds that they're entrusted with, and being kind of the eyes and ears of the board and the citizens versus the stockholders and the executives, and the boards of public companies. So I think a lot different, but I think it'd be very rewarding to feel like you're impacting it that way. So, like I said earlier, I taught forensic accounting
Right.
for a few years, so I think I got a taste of the educational side of things. I really enjoyed that, so this is obviously is a university level, but I think being my small part that I could play within Lake County School District would be pretty rewarding, I think.
My last question, I know we're short on time, I want to make sure you guys get in, but you had mentioned in a couple of your resume items that you had generated cost savings here and cost savings here. How do you reconcile, I generated this cost saving with like actually seeing that bottom line on a budget?
Most of what I've been able to do is create efficiencies in processes and really reduce the overall budget requirements year over year.
Okay.
So really implementing more efficient processes or implementing a software that might make the internal audit process more efficient and get more bang for the buck for the spend on internal audit. Then being able to say, we got saving, we're spending less, but we're getting more. So some of it, it's kind of a difficult concept sometimes to say, and I've had this discussion with executives of multi-billion-dollar companies, loss prevention is not quantifiable, and many executives, and if you're in business, it's not, people can't grasp that sometimes, that if you put good internal controls and processes in place, you can save money, but you're not going to be able to show it unless you can, maybe trend line it or horizontal analysis year over year and spend in different areas, but you are improving the environment and making a difference. So the ones that I have on my resume are clear savings year over year.
Okay.
Clear efficiencies gained, because like I stepped into SeaWorld and I was like, you guys are wasting so much time doing this. Let's step back, and we implemented a software that really helped administer the internal control requirements for the company, so.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Dodge?
Well, with your vast experience in the corporate world, I thought just about any company would be just so lucky to have you as part of their team. And so I had the similar wondering as to what attracted you to Lake County. But I think you covered that answer. So I'm gonna shift gears a little bit and just kind of wondering if you could gaze into the crystal ball for a moment. Where do you see yourself professionally in 5 years from now?
If you see on my resume, there's long time frames that I've spent at organizations where I felt very valued. I've had high-level roles. I've been in, a partner level for a large firm. I've been a vice president of internal audit. I'm really at a good point in my career to really sit down and make a difference over a period of years. And being a director of internal audit for Lake County School District seems like a very good fit for me. 5 years from now, I'll be doing the same thing. I know my predecessor was here for 10 years. So he obviously, which is appealing to me as well. If I had seen that you had 4 directors of internal audit in the last 10 years or something, I've been, but him being here for 10 years really jumped out at me. It was like, well, this person must have really enjoyed it. And so that, I probably wouldn't have even applied if I had seen a lot of turnover. So, so it means to me that people like working here. And, I do some of the websites, Glassdoor and things like that, and people make comments. You can only put so much weight in some of that, but a lot of great comments about people who work for Lake County School Districts. You always got detractors, and you got to drop those. But I mean, there's a lot of good comments made. So I see being the director of internal audit 5 years from now.
All right, thank you.
Anything else? Mr. Brandyberg?
Tough part of going near the end. They asked
Yeah.
all my good questions outside of the ChatGPT question, so I'm good. Thank
Oh,
you, Mr.
okay.
Grimes. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Well, He's right. They do ask all the good questions.
All
But
right.
what I would say to you is that we're wonderful people. We're excellent. We spend a lifetime.
I admire people who are willing to step up to be on boards. I mean, I helped set up Certified Fraud Examiners Association in St. Louis. I'm a born and raised St. Louis guy, so hopefully you don't hold me being a St. Louis Cardinals fan against me. But, so being on boards is a lot of volunteers on the World Affairs Council in St. Louis. I was a board member there as well. So being a board member and stepping up takes a lot of your time. I know you got other lives, many of you, so I admire that. So
Thank you.
You being the eyes and ears, me being your eyes and ears for what's actually going on day to day, I think is what you need to be able to trust that person.
We
So
appreciate that.
And as a Red Sox fan, I appreciate having played you in the World Series.
There it
You
is.
whooped us one year.
That's right.
I do have one question.
Sure.
Because so many people view persons who work for the school system as their employees because they like to tell you how you're paid with taxpayer dollars, you will find that oftentimes there are people in the community who will want to talk to you,
Okay.
want to scrutinize what you're doing. Do you foresee any concern with having to deal with the public in that manner?
No, none at all. I'll follow whatever protocol the board asks me to follow. I would never do anything offhanded. I'd always clear any discussions I'm having with the citizens, with the board before I do that. So it's important that we
And you're
have
a
that.
patient man.
Yes, very patient.
All right.
Yeah, yes.
Very patient.
Did I answer it right? Yes, I mean, I've got a list of references and people that worked for me are on that list, so, with me, so you'll learn a lot from them, I'm assuming that would be needed, so.
Okay. Well, we certainly do appreciate your interest. We're very happy that you're interested in us, and we thank you for your time.
Great, appreciate it. I brought some lists of references that Jamie asked me to bring. I don't know if Jamie's around or,
You can leave them with
Yes,
me.
sir.
I'll
if
be
you'll
happy
give
to
would
them
you?
to
Okay.
Mrs. Challenger.
let's see, my resume. Copies of your budget. I was looking at in the car.
We like that.
Huh?
We like that you were doing that.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, we just
Everybody's
went through the
names.
transition with our website, so
Okay.
you probably did have a hard time finding. some
yeah, there was no
things.
bios for you guys on the website. I just pointed that out.
Were recently.
Did I give it to you? or-
Did they go away?
There.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Oh, yeah, the website is undergoing
Oh, okay.
transformation.
There should be,
Yeah.
so
We're
check
trying to-
back.
Yeah, okay,
Lines.
yeah, yeah. I did, I know Tyler looked at my LinkedIn profile a couple hours ago.
Oh, yeah?
I appreciate it.
I don't like that feature, just so
I love
everybody
it.
Yeah,
knows.
that you know who's
Well, you-
15 people viewed your profile.
You're in business on your own too, right? So you like to see who's looking
Yeah, I
at,
do.
you want
That's
to see if you got
hysterical.
potential clients. so.
Okay.
Thank you
Thanks
again.
very
All right,
much.
good.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Is Bill allowed to ask that question?
Of course he is.
Are you closer? Oh. Oh, okay.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hello. good
Hi.
afternoon.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We're very happy to see you and have you come today. This is Mr. Scott Ward, our CFO. He will be actually addressing you first with a series of questions, and then the board members and I may have some follow-ups afterwards.
Absolutely.
If there's any questions, please feel free to ask Mr. Ward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our next candidate is Dolce.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I said it, Reyes?
Race.
Race. And so I will be asking a series of questions, so you can just respond to the board. Please begin with a brief overview of your relevant experience with internal auditing and the organizations for which you have conducted internal audits, particularly those in the public sector.
All right. I've been in auditing since I left college, particularly external audit first, but I've been in internal audit since I moved to the United States. I worked in a variety of businesses, nonprofits, for-profits, manufacturing, lately healthcare, and I also worked in higher education in part of my career. Public would be more in terms of the higher education and healthcare in certain locations, but I have a variety of locations, of types of work.
Okay. What do you believe to be the key challenges of internal auditing in a public school district?
I think it's just like in any other place, you know, you're guided by regulations, by regulatory statutes of the state you are and the location you are in. The assumption is always that as an internal auditor, you have the independence that you need to in order to do your job, and I think that is key for everything you have to do. But I think the constraints would be more in terms of what regulatory requirements are and what you need to do.
Okay. How would you approach developing an annual audit plan for a school district, and what would you prioritize?
I think first thing I would need to understand is, you know, what has happened in the past, what kind of issues we were found, or kind of audits that were done before, but then sitting with everybody and understanding the processes, what are, let's say, talk to external auditors and understand, you know, what they have looked and found in the past. New laws and regulations, they are coming up. So if you look at the environment, laws and regulations, if you look at what has been happening in the past, the kind of audits that have been going on, what are the people that are working in the area know, and what they think it is a risk or what they see as a future problem. So you gather all this information, and then you can come up with ideas, you know, what can you look that will prevent those risks from becoming a reality. And then you can come up, you know, depending how many people you have working on, and you can come up with a plan for the 4 year, 5 years, 3-year plan, or as, you know, whatever you need.
Please explain your process for conducting risk assessments in a public setting.
Interviews, I think interviews would be the first thing, and talking to the CFO, talking to the people within the departments, talking to the board, and understanding what are their concerns. I think this is the key. It will be done in, I don't know, maybe in a month or so, but having all those interviews, understanding the laws and regulations, understanding the financials, so coming up with that, you would come up with 20, 30, 40 items in your audit plan for your proposed or audit plan, and then look at the risk, and then you could rank in different ways. But I would usually rank based on maybe new regulations coming up or areas that haven't been looked into a long time, and then present to, I guess, all of you what ideally the plan would be.
Okay. What strategies would you use to ensure effective communication and collaboration with stakeholders across various departments in a school district and the board, including the effective communication of audit findings and recommendations?
I think one of the most important things for the auditor is to talk to everybody, get to know everyone, right? I like transparency, so I think whatever medium communication is most used within the location, either emails, actual conversations, but always making sure that as much as possible, nothing is done without the people involved knowing that we are working on. So making sure that they know when an audit's going to start, making sure they know what's happening throughout the audit, making sure they understand that they agree with findings, because then we can start already, as we are finding them and working through, we can start already fixing and making corrections. So I think the way I usually work, depending on the audit, at least once a week, I haven't summarized email telling, okay, that's what I've been doing this week, and those are the things I'm finding, so everybody knows. And again, communication, whatever way it's preferred, but I don't like surprises. I don't like to come up with things that nobody knows about. Everybody needs to know and understand otherwise.
Okay. Describe a complex audit issue that you have encountered in a previous role and discuss how you investigated it and how you resolved it.
Everything that comes to mind now is related to healthcare, but, well, when I was doing higher education, for example, there's something I was looking at the physicians' payments, right? And one of the things that was very interesting is that it was within the university, you have different departments, right? And each department had a different way of calculating the bonuses for their physicians. So I'm not saying that they were wrong ways, they were very different ways of doing things. So what I try to do, I try to understand why the process was different and what we're doing, the way we're doing, and then having to talk to each dean to understand, why are we doing this way? And why can't we just do the same way all over the university, for example? Well, I came to learn very fast that in order to make changes, it was very difficult because each location thought as themselves as being very independent. They didn't want to do what everybody else did. But not only that, in order to make any changes, we had to have approval of 100% of the physicians in each location. So it was absolutely impossible to make changes. So we ended up proposing that the basic way of calculating bonuses, for example, was one, but then each dean would have a percentage where they could do whatever they wanted to. So it was not the best, but it was the best we could do at that time. So I think it is understanding not everything, the others are not 100% right all the time. There is sometimes a need to do something or a reason behind it, and trying to accommodate to the best that you can without creating a lot of conflict.
Okay. In your opinion, what do you believe to be the primary role of an internal audit manager in helping a school district improve its operational efficiency?
What I would imagine is that one of the things that drives everything is the money that you get from the state or from whatever areas you're getting that. So to me, it's understanding how do we appropriate the money, how it's used, and to making sure that, we do it correctly and according to the law and to the word comes back to me, according to the policies of each place.
Okay. That concludes my questions for this portion. The board members now can have additional questions or clarifying questions. So.
Mr. Mathias?
Can we speak to the amount of time you spent at each of your jobs as you've moved about?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. There were different reasons and different ways for me to change. The longest I worked at a particular job was when I worked for Chan Healthcare. They were part of, we worked for Ascension, right? And it was I don't think I would have ever left, but they were sold and everything has changed after that. Right after that, I spent a couple of years in Brazil taking care of my mom, came back, and I went to Missouri, University of Missouri, and work in the healthcare area for internal audit and higher education. But Missouri was not quite where I wanted to be. It was really far for everything, so I was looking into something else. Something came up in Virginia, and again, things happened. But the president, the CEO that had hired me, retired, and the new person that came in decided to outsource internal audit. So I went to St. Peter's in New Jersey, And again, there was a talk about companies, hospitals merging, and we were not quite sure what was happening. So I end up already thinking about future and retirement, moving here to Florida, and I'm working now for UF Health. And the reason that I'm looking, I think is important for you to know also, is that, again, there is a change that's happening, and there is a possibility that they may ask me to move either to Jacksonville or Gainesville, and I'm not quite sure if that's what I want to do. So I've decided to start looking to see what's around.
Are you working out of Leesburg then, right now?
My office is in Leesburg, but I actually attend both hospitals in Central Florida, Spanish Plains and Leesburg.
So you have virtually no government experience, which is completely unique.
That's correct. I did have government experience at certain parts, looking with contracts, doing that for a company that produced medical instruments. So my responsibility was a government contract, so I have that side. So I really don't, I have to tell you, I don't have a lot more than that, yes.
But are you a quick study?
I think as an internal auditor, you kind of are, because the internal audit is internal audit anywhere you are. So you just have to learn a little bit, and I think I've done well throughout the different areas that I've been to.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I had a very similar question to Mr. Mathias's, so I don't have any at this time, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, similarly, same kind of question there. But okay, just thinking about if you're maybe thinking about leaving UF. I don't know why anybody would ever do that. Go Gators! But anyway, hypothetically, let's say you are. Lots of places you could end up. Why Lake County Schools?
This is something particular to me. I always liked school for me. And when my kids were in school, I participated a lot in their education, was in the PTAs. I ran one of the largest fairs that we had to get money for the PTA. So I like the idea of doing something, and it's something different. So it's another area to learn, and I think it's nothing more important than schools, education.
Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
I don't intend to become a CEO of someplace else. That's not my intention. I'll be quite happy if what I'm doing is bringing good results to the location where I am and giving me satisfaction. So as long as it's something that works on both sides, I'm quite happy.
I like that answer. One more, little scenario-based question.
Sure.
Suppose you discover discrepancies in the financial records of a school within the district. How would you proceed with your investigation into those allegations?
I guess it really depends what you could find, but let's say you just found some
Got
cash.
an anonymous tip that something was going on at a booster club, for example. What would be your steps of responding to that?
Since I'm assuming I don't know how it happened, I'm not quite sure who's involved, that would be trying to present myself. I'm the auditor, I'm here looking, I just want to understand your process, what's going on. Depending on the information I get, maybe coming to the CFO, maybe talking to more people about that area. But one of the first things you do when you're doing any sort of investigation is trying to ascertain yourself of what's happening and how it happened and who has access to things and who has their hands on it. And so it's a lot of, I would do more like, I'm here just a quick audit, let me check, talk to me about it, what's going on, without creating a lot of confusion.
Perfect. And one more, how do you follow up on audit recommendations to ensure that they're implemented effectively?
It depends. I like to give them, to give the auditees some time, depending, it could be a month, it could be 3 months, depending, it could be longer if it's an IT-related area, it could be done immediately. But what I usually do, I would create a report that I know what's coming up, maybe on a monthly basis, send out reminders. Look, remember this is an action plan for you that is due at certain date, making sure you get it done. Talk to me if you have any questions. Let's work together. So it will be a reminder, at least monthly.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I think you acknowledged in one of your answers that schools are kind of unique. We're different.
Yes.
And one of the things that's so different about us is that the public assumes ownership of us. So it's someone in your position would oftentimes be scrutinized by members in the community. Have you had any experience with that? Do you feel that that's going to be something that you will be able to settle into and be able to do to a comfort level, or how do you feel about that?
I don't think I have had any experience where, my name popped out for some reason. It was like all over the news, for example. Nothing like that.
Yeah.
But I think just the fact of being the auditor, people are always looking at you as, okay, there's the auditor, so be quiet, let's not talk about this. So there's always that, and I'm quite comfortable with myself. I live a very quiet life. There's not much there to find. So I think I'm okay with that.
Okay. I meant more or less they're scrutinizing your job. When you're actually doing the internal audits, they will have questions.
But I think if you follow the guidelines, the Institute of Internal Auditor guidelines, if you follow the laws regarding the schools, if you follow all of that, and the way I like to explain my audits need to be documented in such a way that if somebody that is not an auditor, if they look at it, they should come up with the same conclusions that I did. So as long as you document everything, you explain how you did it and why you got to those conclusions, and it's transparent, there's not much to be said.
Okay, agreed? Thank you.
You're welcome.
We appreciate your time today, and we appreciate your interest in Lake County.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You'll complete that and then.
I'll leave it in the front for you.
Yep,
Thank you. Thanks.
It's so cool.
Oh, I don't know.
I'm just kidding. I'll tell him. I'll ask him. I guess. For an audit.
You guys are doing so well. We're
Well,
right
thank
on
you. I'm
schedule.
happy you approve.
I do. Inquiring minds want to know what you're giving them. What are you giving them?
Same thing I did when I hired a superintendent, is I do a personality test.
How you doing?
Love you.
I'm doing
Remember
great,
that?
thank you for asking.
I so remember that.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you? We'd like to welcome you and to let you know that we're extremely happy that you're here and that you have an interest in Lake County. The gentleman standing there next to you is Mr. Scott Ward. He's our CFO. He will be asking a series of questions, and then afterwards, individual board members may have follow-up. And of course, anything else you'd like to share with us, we'll be happy to entertain.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Today's next candidate is Deborah Thomas. Ms. Thomas,
I think she's got some folders she was trying to.
Oh,
Sorry.
No worries.
pass those out.
Thank you.
Oh, wow.
wow.
Personal
Thank
touch.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, we can begin now. Please begin with a brief overview of your relevant experience with internal auditing and the organizations for which you have conducted internal audits, particularly any in the public sector.
First of all, thank you for allowing me to sit before you today. I was an auditor for the Internal Revenue, and with the state of Florida, as well as I do audits for nonprofits.
What do you believe to be the key challenges of internal auditing in a public school district?
Making sure that the budgets and everyone making sure that the budgets are accurate and that everyone are following the procedures and guidelines that are set before the school board.
Okay. How would you approach developing an annual audit plan for a school district? And what factors would you prioritize?
I will make sure that, that we have all of the financial statements, all of the financial goals, and that we look at the strategic plans.
Okay. Please explain your process for conducting risk assessments in a public school setting.
Risk assessments, making sure that everything is accurate. Again, making sure that we follow, that there are proper procedures and guidelines are being followed. Look back at previous risk assessments and gather information from those and go forward.
Okay. What strategies would you use to ensure effective communication and collaboration with stakeholders across various departments in a school district, including the board, and effectively communicate audit findings and recommendations?
I will make sure that all of my paperwork is correct, that everyone has a copy of what I'm going to present, and that I will follow the guidelines, look at previous audits, and make sure that they're going to match, that they coincide with each other.
Okay. Describe a complex audit issue you have encountered in a previous role, and explain how you investigated it and how you resolved the issue.
Currently, right now, I'm doing an investigation for a nonprofit, where through my investigation, I found that there is some money missing in regards to inappropriate funding. And to get to that, I checked the balance sheets, the financial statements, and then I went back and went through all of the receipt books for accurate information. I used their guideline, their standards and procedure guidelines that they have set forth for their nonprofit, and then I also used the state of Florida for nonprofit guidelines
Okay.
to come up with my conclusions.
Okay. In your opinion, what do you believe to be the primary role of an internal audit manager in helping a school district improve its operational efficiency?
In my opinion, to make sure that all of the books are correct, that there's no money missing, that all the bookkeepers are using the same and accurate procedures. Also making sure that all of the data that is being put out is coming back accurately.
Okay. That concludes the questions that I have. We'll turn it over now to the board and allow them the opportunity to ask individual questions.
Thank you. Mr. Mathias?
Mrs. Thomas, looking at your resume, you've moved around quite a bit, so there's no, like, longevity to your employment. You want to speak to that?
I've been with the Seminole County Public Schools since 2000.
Where is that?
I think these are all different positions within Seminole County Schools.
Right.
Oh, okay. Each one moved. Okay. So at Seminole County, so at present, you're a ninth grade
I'm at the
center,
ninth grade center.
but none of these have anything to do with auditing then?
No, sir. In the private sector, I do private audits.
But government auditing is quite different.
I do understand that.
Okay. Okay, that's all I've got.
You did mention, you said you work for the IRS. Did I hear that at the beginning?
Yes,
Can you
ma'am.
tell us
Once
about
I graduated from Bethune-Cookman College, I was commissioned to work for the Internal Revenue, where I worked there for 3 years.
that? Okay, and conducted internal
Audit,
audits?
yes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you mentioned that, and you mentioned another one, but that was the nonprofit. the
Right.
Nonprofit,
And with the state of Florida.
and with the state of Florida as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, that's my question.
You,
Yes, so looking back at, I mean, obviously I see you've got the MBA and the Bachelor of Science as well in Business Admin. Do you have any sort of other certifications that might support your expertise in the auditing world?
I do
Such
have a PhD in organizational psychology, where I help build businesses. I also write grants in regards to me being a certified public accountant. No, I'm not.
Okay, and similarly, you're not also certified as an internal auditor or anything
No,
of
I'm
the sort.
not. But if need be, I could accomplish that.
So how did you come to acquire the relationships with these various nonprofit groups for them to be interested in having you provide your services?
As I stated before, I have a PhD in organizational psychology. I started out doing my master's program writing grants. And during that time, people started coming to me, asking me to do their 501c3s, doing seminars about writing grants and how to obtain a 501c3.
So certainly, of all the, you've had a pretty lengthy career with Seminole County Schools. What made Lake County stand out to you? Why did you decide to apply here?
I was actually counseling with a young lady that lives in the area, and I was just like, I was talking to one of my friends, and they were like, why don't you try? He told me, he'd say, look at this position and apply for it and see what happens. And I was like, okay, I like a challenge.
All right, okay, all right.
Mr. Brandyberg?
Just one. How do you follow up on audit recommendations to ensure that they are implemented effectively?
How would I follow up? I would make sure that make sure that I have all of the information. Then I would go back and contact and schedule a meeting to sit down and talk to that person to make sure that they understand what is happening and how it's going to happen and what is going to happen.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas.
You're welcome.
I just have a couple, Ms. Thomas. I guess my first question would be, you obviously have been an effective and productive teacher. So are you looking at a change in occupation? I mean, are you looking to take a leap from instructional to the world of audit or finance?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Basically, I want to get back to what I actually went to school for.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. And then my last question would be, since you obviously have worked in schools, you are aware of the public's view that they own the schools and we need to be accountable to them. In your role as an internal auditor, how would you deal with scrutiny from the public? And when I say scrutiny, I mean in terms of just your actual audit work. You know, when they call you up and want to know why it is you said this or how you came to find that, just answering to the public.
I take criticism with a grain of salt because I know everyone has their opinion. I'm not going to be everyone's favorite because being an auditor for the Internal Revenue, and even when I do taxes today, I'm never no one's favorite. So in regards to that, it is what it is.
Okay.
You can't bully me. I'm gonna stand flat-footed in and I'm gonna be grounded. It is what it is.
Okay.
And then we'll go from there. We can compromise, we can talk about it, but at the end of the day, if my records show that you done did something that you were not supposed to do, that's what it's gonna be, and I'm gonna bring it back to you all and say, look, this is what I found.
Okay. Well, we certainly do appreciate you noticing us in Lake County and having an interest, and we appreciate your time today.
Okay,
If
thank
there's
you.
nothing else from the board, we appreciate you, Ms. Thomas. Thank you.
for allowing me to come in.
Yes, ma'am. And thank you for the nice notes.
Very sweet, thanks. And I'll pick up that.
Which personality is this?
That's our last one, sir, right? Okay.
Was a fourth candidate, but they
Then you're going to tell her that.
they requested the salary schedule and then called back and canceled.
Okay. So are there any directions for us on what to do with our sheets?
You can leave everything with me, and then if you want to give the superintendent direction what you guys want to do next, that would be helpful.
We're not going to make a decision today, right?
No,
I don't think we
I
have.
was asking, how should we indicate?
What's the next step?
The board can give us with whatever directive you would like as a next step, so I figured that the board might want to have a discussion about the candidates and any thoughts and moving forward, or if you want to delay that conversation for another time, was whatever the pleasure of the board would be.
If y'all want to rank them,
So what's the pleasure of the board?
yeah, happy to take the ranking.
So,
Well, we can't make a decision today because it's not a special meeting, right? It's just a
no,
workshop, so we can.
but let me ask this.
Direction for recommendation.
So each of them had strengths and weaknesses. And if I were to rank, it would be the first gentleman, probably number one. However, much of what he said, I heard about 10 years ago from our first auditor. So we don't have, someone needs to have some knowledge of government accounting, in my opinion. So we can't pause and like re-advertise. That would be where I would, I'm not completely sold on any of the three.
I will tell you that from my initial review, and I'm not you or speaking for you guys. I didn't go out and rank them or anything, but looking at the group of candidates the first time and the second time was not much different. We did not get. In fact, the first gentleman was probably my top pick out of the first group, and again the second time also.
But I'm disappointed and surprised that, which may speak to the pool, that our third applicant, who has absolutely no experience whatsoever, made it into the top three. We're doing something wrong. And maybe the way we're trying to recruit's wrong.
We did have more than 4 people apply, right?
Oh yeah, we had thousands of people apply. We
And
had a
those were
lot-
our best.
But
That's the-
four.
But you see my point? We're
Yeah.
doing it wrong, something's wrong.
So I think it's getting out there, but I think the interest in working for a school district in the low pay is what's going to be the biggest barrier. There
What's the
were,
range that we're publishing?
we published the salary range, and it's a director position, so it starts at 98,000.
And Tom was at what when he left? 110?
I want to say he was close to,
Five.
he was like 1.8, 110, something in that area.
Are we asking that they be CPAs, since I noticed that the last one wasn't?
I think it said preferred, not CPA, but
But you don't have to.
certified public internal auditor, whatever that, certified internal auditor, CIA.
Well, and I think the clarification too, because the first two were absolutely qualified, I mean, tons of experience by
Yeah.
all means. So is it that we expect them to have the government qualified side? Or is it that, I think right now we have, that it's a like, we would like it. I don't want them to listen to this and think, oh, they didn't like any of it. You know what I'm like,
Right,
they were
right.
very well qualified.
You know,
But when you have that, the problem's going to be, and y'all lived
Yes.
it with me,
Yeah.
is that learning curve.
Yes.
And audits took longer than they should because Tom had to get up to speed with what the audit was, or what to audit. I just can't, it'd be nice if somebody just had that experience, that's all.
I can tell you, with working with other auditors in other areas, that it's not incomprehensible to have someone come in, do some conversations and some mild research and come up with what they need to be looking at. I think, and I know, I'm trying to say this as nicely and politically as correct as possible.
Just say it.
I think somebody else could come in with the same information that Tom had and could have done a better job in times.
I appreciated the first gentleman, and he did reference Mr. Ward frequently in working with the CFO, but that he reported to the board, that he seemed to reiterate that relationship and the strength in that relationship to be able to have the direction from the district's perspective and be able to report from the board, so.
And I think coupled with that, he's got a quite a impressive set of skill set and experience in some well-known reputable corporations that it seems to me that he has the capacity to catch on quickly.
Sure.
When you talked about the landscape, the different auditing landscapes.
Yeah, and I think he was pretty honest about acknowledging the pay for this job
yeah.
and still saw himself in 5 years from now, right here, with the right climate.
Right.
So, and those are some selling points.
I would agree with all that. I mean, I would rank them in the order in which they presented. But I would also say, too, that the first gentleman, piggybacking on what Mr. Dodd just said, think we're going to need a candidate like that recognizes the earning potential here versus the earning potential on the outside, and being at a point in their life where it's more impactful and more important to work with kids or be with us in our mission, and be able to maximize their talents that way. I hear you and agree with what you're saying, Mr. Mathias. I was a little underwhelmed with some of it too. But again, I think we've advertised this twice now, and I think Mr. Grimes is certainly qualified, and with a little bit of coaching from us and working with other folks in the community, I think he can do the job effectively. I just don't want us to to wait too long on this decision, and someone like him may get away, thinking, okay, these folks aren't going to make up their mind, and just, what are we going to get then? So it's, I don't know.
I know government doesn't move all that quickly, but at the same time, don't want to drag this out.
I will suggest that as a transition occurs, no matter what that transition is, RSM is an audit firm that does internal audits. They have a specific internal audit function, and they do 3 mid-sized school districts. And it might benefit the board to actually have them come in and help whoever comes in get started in that transition. It might help them quickly develop an audit plan and move forward without having so much of a learning curve. And then hopefully at that point in time, whoever the candidate is can pick it up and go with it.
Do you know how, just a guess, how expensive that would be to have them come in?
I can ask what it would cost that they normally would charge, because they've done that for other districts. I can ask what they would normally charge for a district, because they do Osceola, Marion, and one other off the top of my head, I don't remember, but they do 3.
Well, I concur with everyone. I would rank them in the order that we saw them. Mr. Grimes, by far, in my mind, would be the most amenable candidate. However, there is a concern about his lack of school. Although he seemed like someone who would be a quick study, and perhaps with the help of the company you mentioned, he could possibly be okay. So, what's the will of the board?
Okay. I'm just going to say, it's just deja vu as I was listening to the interview. And I'm just telling y'all. So I have real concerns. And this isn't something we can contract out.
It is something we could contract out.
Because I thought that's the direction we were initially.
Can we do it for $100,000?
How much was it?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the number of audits. And that was something that I philosophically disagreed with Tom about. There was an expectation that Tom do 10 audits a year by himself. And obviously, he was one person, so he never could really get into doing 10 audits all by himself. So I think if the board and your candidate get into a direction where they're only doing 2 or 3 audits a year, they're doing their risk assessments, they're doing their audit plans, and then a couple of thorough audits down the road, then I don't know that you can get it under $100,000, but you probably could get it, reasonable.
100,000 with no benefits and retirement and all those things. So there's
It
probably.
would be less.
Yeah.
Possible. I agree. I mean, it's
I thought
worth
that was kind of the
considering.
direction we were going, because otherwise, letting Tom leave us and then interview, we've got this gap now that
I
we're
was
trying
thinking
to
the same
fill
thing.
very quickly, that we should have had somebody on board to transition.
I agree. That was disturbing when we were talking about bringing in a company to do the transition. It was like, we should have done the transition before we let Tom go, for sure.
Well,
I
maybe
don't-
there's some advantage in not having that transition
Maybe.
based on a comment you just made. So,
Well, he was dedicated to the district.
Yeah.
sure, no doubt, no doubt,
Yes.
absolutely was. I mean, to be here for 10 years, but but if we're thinking about how do we, get the highest quality work, and we're looking for somebody with,
Well, by the 10th year, he had gotten it. I was just saying the first 5 were a little slow.
Well, and didn't we do the first advertising in the first quote-unquote round in March or April anyway? So, I mean, if the first one would have gone as we thought, then there would have been a little bit more of an overlap between
Yes.
Tom leaving and the new one starting. So I think we made that decision. I certainly agree I would have liked for more of an overlap
But,
here.
It was the audit committee that was involved.
Yeah, I think the
And that
audit-
was the
Then
thing
we
too.
had-
True.
Then we had the position, then we started talking about doing outside.
Right.
Which I thought all along that's what we were ending up with.
Yeah.
And then here we are.
And please forgive me, but I don't remember the conversation going one way or the other for internal or external. I don't remember us settling anywhere. I would say, and just the minimal amount of research that I've done on internal versus external, it seemed that there was value in an internal only because they're dedicated to the district. They're not just an outside firm that comes in, does the job, and leaves, that they have a vested interest in the outcomes and following up with the outcomes, some of those things that we wouldn't get from an outside firm. So I think it's philosophical. I don't think it's one's
But
better
there's
than
also
the
something
other.
to be said for them having absolutely no relationship
yeah.
with the employees of
true.
the district to
I
come
don't
in and do
disagree.
an objective audit. And one of my concerns always, by the way, was, did we ever have any measure of all the millions of dollars that we supposedly saved.
That's why I asked
Yeah,
that
we-
specific question. That is why I asked, which was funny that his answer was similar to what we've had.
That's my point.
Yeah. I don't disagree.
Well, I think one of your advantages when you've got somebody internally, when you get some of these minor things that might come forward, you don't feel so guilty about, just having somebody, like, we're not going to go hire this outside firm every time we get a call about a booster club missing $1,000, right? But meanwhile, there's an advantage of, here, can you look into this? Without expending a lot of money, we can do that.
You
And
pay a guy $100,000 to go look at missing $1,000.
no, but that's not the only thing he's going to do.
Is that a
right?
constant, I mean, I
Well,
know we've had it.
well, how many booster clubs have we had over the last few years that have, they're always hitting the
We
news.
usually have about one a year at least.
And I like that this guy mentioned having experience teaching forensic
Yeah.
the accounting, right? So that's largely what a lot of that is. And meanwhile, I think in some of our previous ones, the sheriff's office was reluctant, or the state attorney's office, somebody was reluctant to take that up because of looking at meeting a certain volume threshold and how expensive it was going to be to analyze that. If he's got some skills to analyze that, that's fantastic.
When you're doing a forensic audit, you have to, it's not just bringing evidence in to a level that you can have an opinion about it. You have to bring in a level of evidence in that's strong enough to support in court. And so that's a higher level of evidence and it requires more. And law enforcement struggle with the ability to pay for that.
Does the school district have an opinion on the external versus internal argument?
The school district as in your CFO?
Yes.
No, could we get,
What do you think, Elizabeth? What's your?
You're the only one passionate enough to show up today.
I'd like to know Natalie's opinion.
I see where it's, I think I've articulated this a couple times. It's hard for any one individual to be able to cover all of the areas that we deal with in our operations. I mean, we have substantial facilities, maintenance, and then we have all the curriculum. We have the ESC, which is very specialized. So it's hard for one individual to be able to cover all of those effectively. But I also kind of like a hybrid approach where you've got one individual and then as they determine and as you determine through risk assessments that something needs to be looked at, if they need that expert level person to come in, they can bring that person in. Very similar to what Tom was doing with the construction audit stuff. Not so sure that we need to do every project as an audit, but very similar to that.
What I think I heard you say was that an internal auditor to cover the basics, and then we would hire expertise outside of the basics.
One of my concerns about having your,
That's what I heard.
Thank you.
one of my concerns about having your contracted
Sorry.
One of my concerns about having your contracted internal audit firm do your audit plan is they're going to be writing their own check. So, oh, yeah, you got high risk
Yeah.
and everything's high risk and now you need all these audits and
But
you're having to
couldn't
pay
you
them
do
to come
the
in.
risk assessment?
Technically, I'm not independent, so
Talking about segregation of duties.
Yeah, but
there.
isn't that where he does the,
But the only thing Tom did was go talk to him.
right?
Yeah, but Tom
Take
reports
back
to
to
us.
Leslie.
So there's that accountability piece.
I'll take I'll take it for $50,000.
I think we have a policy that doesn't allow you to.
In 2 years, I'll do it.
So if we don't have an internal auditor, those occasions when we have something that needs to be investigated, such as a booster club, who does that? You?
I can probably do the initial inquiry about it, but as far as going out and then doing the actual audit of it,
So how would that work? Would we have to hire someone to do that, or how would that work?
yeah.
So we would still end up having to go to outside if we didn't have a person.
But I will tell you that the few that I was involved in, the level of auditing that was done by Tom was very brief. It
Gotcha.
didn't require a lot of audit steps. It was just him going out, checking some receipts, tying some
Yeah.
things over, a couple of, 3 or 4 days field work and a couple of days to write up a report, and that was pretty much it.
Gotcha. So shall we check with IT? You got an opinion? You think internal versus? Well,
Before I came here, I worked for a car dealership. I was a warranty administrator. So I had to do internal audits for warranty payments and processes. money because they had never been audited before I had the position.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you being willing to share.
You could have submitted your,
Chrysler would show up to do an audit, and their goal was to find as much money as they could take back for it.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Having somebody on hand who knew how everything should be and who could check for discrepancies before something like that could happen.
Thank you.
You want to come sit? You wanna come sit?
We appreciate you.
probably
I
could have
got
been top
7
three.
questions for you.
Okay, so I don't know. I feel like I've already kind of got my candidate made up, but I don't know if, I mean, we can't do anything formally here in this setting, right? So
No,
we
I
got to put
think-
this in an agenda topic,
Just
or?
want-
Right, but I think we have to decide if we're going to select one of these people or if we're going to go in a different direction. So do you want it on a discussion? Would you like to think about it and discuss it further?
Or we can,
Or do we all have opinions already that have been established?
I think probably everybody has an opinion.
I think everybody has an opinion.
But we
Yeah.
look like something else we all have.
Yeah, we're kind of, we're kind of an opinionated group. So, would you like it to go on the agenda as a voting item, or how do you want to handle it?
Yeah,
Okay, so, just so I'm clear, because I'm for the external.
I think we all got that.
Am I on the minority? I mean, I just like to know where we stand. I'm not clear because we kind of bounced around.
Right,
I think you need the hybrid.
I do too.
Okay.
Agreed. Yeah, I think we need a
Okay,
combination
well, then
of.
we know that. So then we're down to.
One of
do
these
we wanna pick
candidates or
one of
against?
One of these people.
Or do we want to flip it and try again?
Yeah.
No?
I don't know. I feel like I'm worried to the point I think Mr. Dodd made, or Mr. Brandyberg, that if we wait, we might lose. a good-
That was his valid point.
But
I
I
think
hear
the
your
Lord works in
PTSD.
mysterious
I
ways.
know, I know. I don't want to listen. Well, I'm not trying to negate the experience you had, and
Well,
He
you had
did
it. We
remind
all
me.
lived it. We've all lived it.
we just weren't in the
I was in
interview.
the beginning.
Okay, but I get the impression this is a very smart fellow.
Me too.
And he's got a very impressive background, and everything seems to be spelled correctly on his resume.
Yeah.
And so,
Formatting was good. 100%.
Right, I mean-
Yeah.
I don't know, like,
I'm big
I'm
on that
telling y'all,
stuff. I-
every bit of everything we're
Right or
saying
wrong.
was said 10 years ago.
Maybe that's a knock on auditing in general, not just the gentleman coming to the table. I don't think
I'm
that
not
industry's
knocking-
changed very
I'm
much.
not
No,
knocking
I'm
the
not
person.
saying you are, but I'm saying what Mr. Mock was saying and what he's saying just seems like par for the course for auditing. So unless we're gonna get
Well,
some.
being fair, they all have sort of the same terminology.
That's
Sure.
right,
Right.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
even the
Number
lady
two- number
talked the
two.
same language.
Agreed. No,
They
absolutely.
say the same words.
Yeah,
Yeah,
But she was extremely honest about the fact that she didn't know anything.
Yeah.
yeah.
that's true.
Well, that's good.
That's true. It is good.
Yeah.
I like humility too.
Mhm, That's right.
You know, I think that he could very well be your repeat of 10 years ago, or he could be different. I think we're almost got to,
Just because he has the same
we
knowledge,
got to bring him on board to know.
I mean, just because he's got the same
Yeah.
knowledge of concepts and terms, you know,
Right.
they've
He
read
could-
the same textbooks.
Oh, don't say
Doesn't-
that.
Doesn't mean that,
So let's
you know.
look at number 1 and number 2.
Number one.
Well, yeah, we kind of have to.
Well, we, well, we could go number 3, but. no. But let's go back to, I like the fact that she was more forthright about what she knew and didn't know. Where the number 1 has this world of experience. He's been a partner in the business. I can't imagine being a partner in the business and then come back and be an internal auditor for Lakeside. I mean, is it, when we ask about 5 years from now, then is he going to be here?
Well, I think that's where your family questions were great, and I mean that sincerely,
Yeah.
to figure out more of who he is as a person and what he said at the end of, look, I've lived that life, I've been the partner, been married
like
34
that.
years, I've got grandkids, I live here in Orlando, and I want to make an impact.
That's when he lit up and started smiling.
And that's when I really
Yeah.
felt a
See,
lot
I
better
mean,
about him
yeah.
now, too.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. Because, I mean, if we talk about the climate and culture here, this is a place where people want to be, right? And so,
And he
I
bought
mean,
near Disney.
that's right.
And I
mean, we are
didn't, I
nice people.
didn't, I thought, I was a little bit, like a red flag kind of went up when our second candidate made the comment that she doesn't like surprises. So I appreciate
Strange
that.
for an auditor.
I wrote
Correct,
that
I
one
was like,
down.
oh.
I don't like surprises.
A lot of times you get calls when we get surprises, right? I was like, oh, okay. So that just threw me a little bit. There was another one I thought I wrote down, but maybe it was for someone else, making changes, challenges. That was it. There was a response that she made as well about making changes were challenging based on the culture of the companies that she was at. But then she said that she likes to accommodate to limit conflict. And I thought, I don't know that that's the role either, but I do also know that there is some accommodating that
Sometimes, yeah.
happens to eliminate conflict. And I know, I think it's funny sitting here discussing even 10 years ago and now, and it is hard work. I often would reflect on like how the job of the internal auditor is to scrutinize work, and nobody really likes that, somebody to come behind them and do that, like it's an uncomfortable feeling. And so, I don't know, that gave me a moment's pause, but maybe not in a bad way. So maybe I just convinced myself that that was okay, that she's accommodating with her recommendations, but then avoids the conflict, because to maintain a professional working relationship with the district, you would probably have to do that well. They both seemed capable of that, though.
She seemed capable. The thing that caused
Agreed.
me a pause for concern with her is she has easily
Yes,
moved from job to
Yes,
job over a
agreed.
consistent amount of time.
I knew
And
exactly what you were
she,
going to say.
yeah, and now, she's considering leaving a company because she may have to move to either Jacksonville or Gainesville, I think.
Wouldn't want to live in Gainesville.
Just seems like
Pause.
like the least little thing that comes along she doesn't like, she's
yeah.
gonna go away.
Yeah.
So,
I'm good on moving forward with Mr. Grimes as the number one choice. I don't know about you guys, but
I am too.
if we're hiring a person, then I would say Mr. Grimes would be my candidate.
Are you trying to do that quickly in your head?
I love it.
Yeah, I'm good enough with Mr. Grimes.
Okay. Would you like
So much for the
for
note.
us and HR to reach out to him and try to set something up, negotiate a contract, or?
Well, just 1 second. I was a
Sure.
little surprised. He gave you references, right?
Yeah, he gave him the name.
Did he not give references to, did we
I
not
think these are the
request
detail,
references?
I think these are the detail in our
It's
format.
part of this, just online application.
Yes.
He did.
So-
They all did.
They would
So
have.
we checked out references already.
I'm assuming HR may or may not have. I don't know the
Yeah,
answer
I'm
to
not
that.
sure. I did not.
Well, I would think
Nobody's gonna
that
write
we
anything
want to
down.
do
So may or
that
may
before
not.
we make an offer.
We should do that.
I would
before
think we would do
Well,
that before we
I
make
will
an
say
offer.
that the way that when we typically hire people, we don't do that step until we've kind of made a decision on where we're going, and then we call the references, because if not, you're calling references for everybody.
That's
I
right.
understand. But then I would call in for sure.
Yeah, call the references.
Before we-
So we-
Now, I think I did references for the superintendent when, so is that fault of
I
the?
know Ms.
We-
did too as well.
That's right, she made the
Well, I
visit.
would- I would
did the
think
phone
that
ones.
you would.
Yeah, right. So I'm saying, since he's our
That's
employee.
before, that
isn't-
says we were trying to narrow down.
But
the-
he's asking, should
No.
we do the reference checks?
Oh, us?
When we had concluded that she was the one,
Yeah.
You called.
I called, Stephanie made a visit, because we declared her the sole finalist, so that also made it easy.
It did.
That we didn't have,
Right.
so I mean, if we
But I
declare
thought
him the
checked
sole
references
finalist.
Before we got to the finalist.
So when HR does reference checks, they have standard questions that they read, right?
Yes.
So I think you have a point, because if they're reading those standard interview reference questions, they're not the same questions that we would ask people if we were doing the reference check. Because they're reading off a sheet of paper. They don't know what our desire is or what we're looking for.
Yeah, so, board chair calls for some reference checks?
love that idea.
Sure. With some assistance from other board members.
Isn't the vice chair like the liaison to some?
It's not
someone?
taking longer.
It's just one person.
I will certainly help.
No, if
Whenever.
you want somebody to check references, and you need some help doing that, then I have no
think-
problem checking references.
I think the vice chair and I could certainly do that, but I think that we would have better follow-up questions than someone in HR.
Yeah.
Because they're going to read those standard
yeah.
questions, Would you rehire this person? Do you know any reason why they shouldn't be rehired? I think we need to know a little bit more than that.
Do y'all want
Why'd you go
to?
from being Bardner to working for Disney or SeaWorld?
Or what do you know about that? Did you have knowledge of him then?
Do y'all want to check references and then come back, discuss it, and
Yes,
then
sir,
move forward
please.
with?
I think we need to report back what we find
Okay.
out.
Makes
I
sense
agree,
to me.
yeah.
Is that agreeable to everyone?
Yes.
Are we just going to do him, or are you going to do 1 and 2?
Nobody's gonna write down a bad reference.
That's at the board's deal, whatever you want.
That's the only thing is, to be fair, based on
Two?
law. No. I don't know that unless you have an inside track that someone's going to give a bad reference in today's world.
Yeah.
Well, if you put someone down as a reference, they're probably not going to give you a bad reference. but-
You want to know who their friend was. You know who their enemies were?
Who can I call that's going to know?
So, I mean, obviously, this is this meeting's out there on the internet, and you know, our
Yes.
candidates have probably watched it, right? And so, you know, what correspondence do we have back as a district to them while this process is unfolding to let our leading candidate know you're the leading candidate? We are checking
You
references.
just let them know?
The other, I mean.
Keep going.
If he has any real interest, he's been listening to it.
Correct.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm just, you know, wondering the next steps of the process. Who does that? Does HR have a role? Do we as a board, somebody?
Normally,
Or who's
It
doing all
would
that?
be HR, but I guess in this case, it would be the board's discretion.
Our
How big a
employee.
role do you want to play, since he's your employee?
I mean, I think you also typically don't tell candidates they're no longer considered unless you've, you know,
Of course
until you get to
not.
the point where you've confirmed that you've got somebody, right? I mean,
I
so
think
if our number one
I also
candidate has
say
some
you probably-
Here's the thing.
bad
Here's
reference
the thing.
issue.
I think that respectfully, number 3 was totally just not qualified. So I think respectfully, we thank her for her time. That if we want to keep number 2 in the running, clearly from this discussion, number 1 came out on top. So short of his references not checking out, which could be a one-day process checking that out.
Right.
That's all we're going to lose.
Do we have to have that information in a public meeting? And the reason I'm asking is, could Mr. Brandyberg and Mrs. Cunningham email that if there were no concerns? Of course, if there were concerns, we want to discuss them, but could they email Mrs. Challenger, and then you guys could put it on the agenda if it was a day process? I would hate for us to say, we're going to check references, then we're going to meet next Monday, and then after we discuss it next Monday, we're going to put out a thing, and then we're going to hire, so that's like another,
Yeah, if everything checks out, go
can we
for it.
can we just do it?
I think that is what we had done for the
You
superintendent
can
was.
direct us that
Okay.
if there are no issues in regards to the reference checks,
Correct.
that staff can proceed to have communication with this individual.
That would be great.
With number 1.
So, Mr. Brandenburg, can we get this done tomorrow?
Yes,
morning?
ma'am.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So we'll have an answer to you in the
Here's
afternoon.
the copies of anybody else with.
We don't need the answer because we can't.
No, yeah, I don't know, they can talk back with
They
us,
can-
but at the next meeting, I guess,
We'll
if
just
we
know
don't
at
see.
the next board
Yeah, we'll
meeting,
just
'cause
know
you
if it's
can't
on the
know,
agenda.
Because that's not such.
Yeah, we'll notify Ms. Challenger that everything
Yeah, we
checked
can
out
tell
or
Ms.
didn't check
Challenger.
out.
Add it to the agenda.
And then proceed to add it to the agenda, and then,
We'll tell Ms.
otherwise, we'll just resume conversation to the next board meeting. Plan B, right?
Or,
Would anyone else like copy of the references?
No?
No, ma'am.
And these are only for the first
one.
I don't
candidate,
think I've heard of any of
correct?
these people, probably.
Challenger? Okay. So if you want the second one checked out, we need
I'm
their
sorry?
references. We only have the first.
Sure.
I'd
I
start-
don't see anything wrong
You
with
can
it.
just run with number
Public
1.
record.
and then
Agree.
if it
Kinda treat it
doesn't-
like a contract.
Only if you see issues.
Then you
number
move on
Okay.
to
Do you
two.
need number 2?
Right.
Okay, well, in that case, we don't need them. If we have issues with these, then we'll let you know, and then you can give us candidate number 2.
There we go.
How does the board want to negotiate the salary with this gentleman, or this person, whoever the candidate is? Because typically superintendent, y'all have negotiated with superintendent, whereas, do y'all want the
Who
superintendent to
would
direct
you all
us?
like
or
to negotiate?
Would y'all like to do it?
The
or-
contract with the chosen individual.
Who did Tom's?
Oh, it was
wasn't
10 years
here.
ago.
Huh? It was 10 years ago.
We weren't here.
I wasn't
Oh,
here.
that's weird. I know that
board
the
chair
board,
did
I know the
mine.
school board was.
Yeah.
not
The school,
involved.
the board chair did yours.
Yeah, but,
The board chair does the superintendent.
That's right. So you all had
Or-
giv-
Or vice chair.
yeah, you all had given me direction on the range. Because we already talked about the range. And so.
For the superintendent.
For superintendent, so I just walked in there and be like, here we are, like it was already written, like there was no surprise, we had already done so much in public.
Our only other employee, so this would be our board chair then.
That's right.
Consistency is probably good.
Okay.
That's way if we're ever challenged, we can say it was consistent with everyone.
So you would do it, and we already have the range, he already knows. the
Well,
range.
yeah, well, I'll be sure to get you the range, and if you'd like for our people who normally do that for all the other directors to kind of give you an idea where we
Yes,
think
I
that they
would.
would,
I would.
we would place them. That way you kind of have an idea what,
Right.
be consistent with everybody else.
I'm sure he's been through a few of these, so we need to
Sure.
be properly
And,
prepared.
you know, I suppose, you know, since the government piece is the concern for us, that's where the learning curve is, then the salary is representative of that, and, you know, in a year from now, because these are annual contracts, right?
I think I'd be so much happier if it started out, like, understanding there's gonna be a curve.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna get the maximum effort out of buying this new Ford. It'd be really great if we could go, if he would accept that lower, like base. And then we can bump it at our discretion with that employee, right?
Sure.
Up to the.
You're the board.
We can.
So my suggestion would be, if he'll accept a low, and then based on performance, that would end my indigestion.
What do you think about that?
I don't know.
Give them an
Put those
incentive.
facial expressions into words.
I got
I
it.
think I made it stupid.
I got it.
No, I don't think it's stupid. I think it would be incentive for him to learn. I don't disagree with that. I don't want to lose him either. That's fine.
That's right.
We're not fishing.
No, I agree. If we were fishing, I'd have had him hooked already.
We got him hooked. You just want to get him in the boat quicker. That's right. I do.
So,
Line break.
do we have any other board comments? Anyone have anything else you'd like to say?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Madam Superintendent, do you have anything?
No, one thing, I wanted to tell you that the Lake County Sheriff's Office today was recognized as Agency of the Year for the state of Florida, for the Florida
our program.
Association of School Resource Officers.
FASRO,
So,
yep.
yeah,
Outstanding.
Wow.
So excited for Sheriff and his amazing team and who's representing the whole state of Florida. So Mr. Mabry was there representing us today, and I know the sheriff was there as well. So, yeah.
Done, well done.
Who was that in Tallahassee?
I believe they're in
Orlando.
Orlando.
Orlando?
When I think that was the municipal partners as well, like that was the overall SRO division of Lake County Schools. So Sheriff's Office and all of our muni partners as well
Okay.
share that award, so big deal.
Great.
Yeah.
And what do you need back from us, sir? So we can make sure we all leave whatever it is we need to leave.
Well, if you want to leave all your notes and stuff,
Okay.
you probably can just leave them all with Natalie, because they're
Alrighty.
public
We can
records.
do that.
Oh, I was going to give my whole.
Elizabeth, do you have anything since you're a little human?
I really appreciated the last conversation. I thought you all had really great questions and really great points. And I agree, if I have an opinion that even matters, of the hybrid option. I think that seems like the right way to go. Thank you for asking my opinion.
Thank you for being here.
So that's 5-1.
Thank you for having me.
You could have gone with me.
Actually, I think that's 6-1.
That's right. Mr. Ward.
Oh, 6.
Six.
Keep fishing, keep fishing.
Y'all just keep piling on.
So if you please leave your folders with Natalie. And if there's nothing further, then I guess we are adjourned.
Would you want that? She just wants the notes.
Oh, you just want
don't
the
have
folder.
to.
I don't want my notes.
So are